So this video is going to be for week 2, day 1, the pet database. So I'm on the instructions right now. The first thing we need to do is create a table named pets. We want the following columns. We need a column for name, breed, image, and then we need at least 3 pets in our table. So I already created a table named pets, and I added the name, breed, and image URL to 3 different pets. So what I did to get the image URL is I just Googled like a breed. So the first one I did was poodle, and I just right click the image. Um, Let's see, right click the image and copy image link right here. So that, or if it's in Chrome, I think it would say copy image address. So something along those lines to copy image link. So when I insert a row, we'll leave ID and the timestamp blank because that's automatically generated with Supabase. So the only things we'll need to do is fill in these columns. So I'm going to go ahead and search for a different breed since I already have a poodle. I'll just do like bulldog. All right, we can click on images to get a bunch of images. That one's cute. So I'm going to right click, copy image link. We'll go back to Supabase, to the image URL fields, and then we'll paste that in there. So Control V, and that's huge. That is way too much. I like that. Let's go back to Bulldog. Let's see if we can find a different one that's not so huge. Right click, copy image link. That one's pretty big too. Let's see if I can click on it. Okay, that's good. So I guess you gotta click on it and click to get like the shorter URL over here. All right, so it's a bulldog, and we'll name it Bruno. I don't know. Bruno the bulldog, and then we'll go ahead and save that. Okay, so um also we'll need to get the API key, which would be in the project settings and API keys. Um, Click this anon link, and then this is the API key for this. If we want to find our URL, we'll go to this data API, and this is going to be our API URL. I already saved this to my sticky notes, so I was just kind of running through it. Table editor. So you know how to make a table. When we make a table, we want to uncheck this. And when we name our table in our columns, we want to do lowercase letters. But since I already made it, I just wanted to kind of run through those steps. And then we would insert row, and then we would put in our animals, or pets. All right. So I guess you could do any kind of pets really, but in this case I did dogs, but you could do cats or felines and all that. So the second step is just create this Supabase client. But first we're going to need to make our set up our project and everything too. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Git Bash. I'm going to cd into where I keep my projects, which is my codex folder. And then I also have a TA folder, so I'm going to do that. And so then we run the code that starts the React project, which is npm create beat at latest. We're going to name our project. I'm going to name it pet database demo. That's what I'll name it. And then it's going to ask us our framework, which is React, and then our variant, which is JavaScript plus SWC. And then we are going to select no for the next two questions. And then it gives us a list of things that we need to do. First, we need a CD into this pet database. If you do CD and then if you start writing it like with the P and press tab, it'll finish it for you so you don't have to type it out. We'll press enter and then we'll do code dot to open up VS Code. I think VS Code's open already. So we'll go into VS Code and we have a project here. The first thing we'll need to do is open up our terminal. Let me switch to Git Bash. I need to fix that. All right, and we're going to run npm install to install our dependencies. It's going to have this node modules pop up. All right, and we can X out of this. So usually when we do our React project, we want to clean up everything. So we'll go into the source folder, this SRC, which is where all of our files are going to live. We go to the CSS first, we click in here, Control A, delete. All right, we'll do that for the index.css. We'll click in here, Control A, delete. All right, then in the app.jsx, I usually delete the first three imports and I keep this .css import. And then I delete this use state and I keep these empty brackets and I delete everything in between them. So from the div to this paragraph. All right, so now everything's kind of cleaned up. I'm going to go back to our instructions and we'll see we need to make a Supabase client. So in React, we usually have the source folder, which has everything in it. And then inside this SRC folder, we'll have other folders where we keep like our components, services, and pages. So in this case, I think we'll only need components and services. So first we'll make a folder. Let's make sure that we're in the source folder. Make a folder. The first one's gonna be services. All right. And so in services, we usually have like our async functions, our config files. It's where if we're fetching anything to another website or something like that, we'll put them in service folder. So in this, we're going to put the Supabase client that it wanted us to create in the instructions. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to copy Supabase client.js. Since this is just going to be JavaScript, usually the service folder only has JavaScript folders in it, not JSX. So we're going to make sure we're in the service folder. We're going to create a file, and I'm going to paste in that Supabase client.js. Okay. All right. So when we're using Supabase, we need our credentials, like our API key and our URL. So those are secrets. So we want to save those in a .env file. So we're going to make sure that we're at the root of the project. So outside of the SRC folder, and we just click out here to make sure nothing's highlighted. And we're going to click new file. We're going to do .env. Right? And so with Vite, your environment variables need to start with the word Vite. So with environment variables, I use all caps. So Vite underscore Supabase underscore URL. All right. So since I have this in my sticky notes, I'm going to go over here and that. Okay. All right. And then the next thing we need to do is beat underscore anon key underscore key. So Veet underscore anon key equals, and then I'm gonna go get that from my sticky notes. And I can get it bases. And then we'll paste that in there. So our ENV file is done. So we can X out of that. But we also need to make sure it's in our get ignore. So let's check. We need to add .env. Oops, I'm still on cap blocks. Okay, and then it looks like we don't have node modules in here as well, so we'll add that node modules. And we need to make sure we have this slash to indicate that we want that whole folder to be ignored. And there we go. So our get ignore folder is ready to go for when we initialize the repo. So with Supabase, there's a few ways that we could call to get our table. So I think he started with, he did and teach all this so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way because it's easier and there is documentation on Supabase that tells you kind of how to do it. So all I did was I searched for Supabase docs JavaScript. I'm going to send you a link to this as well. So you can kind of get, because we need this command right here to install the Supabase library to our project. So we could use Supabase functions to fetch the data. So this is under Java Supabase docs JavaScript installing. So we're going to install the package instead of using the CDN or the other ways that we were doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this npm install Supabase here. I'm going to go back to VS Code and I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to paste that in there so we can install the library for Supabase. Okay. So let's go back to the docs. And if we scroll down, in order to use Supabase library, we need to import it in our project. So this one was giving me an error. So if we go here to our Supabase client.js file and we import curly brackets, I think it's create client. Yeah, so it's the second one right here. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get those environment variables in here. So we'll do const Supabase URL equals, and with React, instead of using the .env or process.env, it's a different way with React. It's going to be import .meta .env and then the name of what we have in our env file. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and copy this Supabase URL variable name and paste it over here. And then we'll do one for our key. So const Supabase underscore key. You can name it whatever you want. Import .meta .env and then we'll go to the env file and copy the name just so we don't have any mistakes or misspellings and then we couldn't figure it. Okay. So now that we have that, we need to we need to use this create client function from Supabase to kind of save all of our credentials into one variable. So we'll do const Supabase equals create client. And then in parentheses, we need to pass the Supabase URL that we just made on line 3, follow, and then with a comma, and then we'll pass Supabase key second. So what this does is creates a variable named Supabase. Inside inside this variable name, we created a Supabase client with our URL and our key. So this basically creates an instance of our credentials. So when we import this file into our app.js, like we'll just use Supabase variable and it holds all of our credentials. So it knows where to fetch from. And so the final thing is we'll export defaults Supabase. So we're exporting this line 6, basically, is what this is saying. And these squigglies are because it's spell check. It doesn't recognize Supabase as a word. So client is done. So let's go to our instructions and see what else we need to do. So now we need to use effect hook to fetch the list of pets from Supabase when the component loads. All right. So there's several ways that we could go about doing this. We can make a component, a pet card, or we can just render it all on app.jsx. But I think what I'm gonna do is we'll make a pet card. If we do cards, we're gonna need Bootstrap. So I'm gonna search for get Bootstrap and I'm gonna copy these links here and paste them in index.html. And let's go get the script. And all right. So now that we have Bootstrap, what we could do, let me look at the instructions again so that I can make sure. It doesn't really say. I guess we could just do it all on one page. Okay, that's all I'll do. All right, so he doesn't really specifically say he wants components, so we can actually just fetch everything on app.jsx and do use effect. So we know we need, so we're going to go to app.jsx. So we're going to need use state and use effect. So we're going to import, did it do that? Import use state and use effect. So we could do that all in one line. So we could do import and the curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets would be use state, comma, use effect from React. It's going to be, and then we're also going to need to import our Supabase client. So we'll import Supabase from dot slash services slash Supabase client. Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to need to do is set a state for the data that we get from Supabase. So what we'll do is we'll make a pets state with const, then the straight brackets will have pets, comma, set pets equals use state, and in the initial state of pets will be an empty array. All right. So then we need to, let me look at the instructions if we need to add use state in the async function. Okay. All right. So we'll do use effect. Oops. Use effect. The syntax for that is parentheses, empty parentheses inside those, then an arrow and curly brackets. Then at the closing of the use effect where it has the curly brackets and the parentheses, in between there we'll do a comma and an empty bracket. So that allows it to run once because React usually like reloads, reloads, reloads. So this tells the browser to just only do this upon loading the page. So in here, we can add our async function that's going to fetch our pets table from Supabase. So I'm going to show you the docs for that. If we go to our doc page, we go to under databases, under database, we go to fetch data and we scroll down and this code right here is basically what we want. The only difference is instead of characters, we'll have pets. So what this does is we have the data and we have error. So this is kind of what we want. We're waiting for these two things. So then this Supabase is actually going to be our Supabase client that we created. And we're going to use dot notation. So dot from, and so from pets is what that's going to be. And then the dot select selects the whole table. So this will just kind of give you an idea of the syntax for this. It's a lot cleaner than the other ways that we were doing it. So we're going to go ahead and make our async function. So let's see, async. I mean, we could do the arrow function if we want. So it would be const fetch pets equals async, and then empty parentheses, arrow, curly brackets. So this is an arrow function. So this would be the same as saying this async function fetch pets. So this is the same as this. But I was just going to do the arrow function just so you can see it once, you know. So if we go to the docs, we see it starts with this const data error equals await. So we're going to go and do that. So const curly brackets data error await Supabase dot from pets is the name of our table dot select and then in parentheses. We could also put in quotes the asterisk, which means it'll select everything from our table. So then we can add some error handling. So we can do an if statement if error console dot error fetching pets error. Try to say error spelled that. Okay. Then in the else statement, we can set pets to the data that we just got. Then outside of this async function, but inside use effect, we can call fetch pets. All right, so what is this? All right. So the next thing we can do is add some, we need to render everything now. So what we'll do is I can add like an H1 here that has like pets on it or something. We could do, then we can do like a div, the class name of row, and then a div with a class name of whole. So we can have like a bunch, like a gallery type thing. All right. And so now we need to render these pets with our render the pets. So we can make a card, like a Bootstrap card if we want. But first we need to actually call pets from this state, right? So we need the curly brackets. We'll call pets dot map. So we're mapping through the table. So in the parentheses, and then another parentheses, we write pet singular. Then we have an arrow and curly brackets. So for each pet in pets, we'll do this. So in the instructions, we want to deconstruct, is what he said on here. So we want to make pet include name, breed, and image URL. So each pet has a name, a breed, and an image URL. So right after we start this map, we can put that here. So const name, breed, image, URL. And these have to match equals pets. Those have to match like what you have in your columns. All right. And so now we need to return and then parentheses. And so now we can make our card. So we'll need a div. We can add a key here. Usually we need keys when we're would be pet.id, the key. And then we'll have a class name of card. So oops. Okay. And so we need a div with the card body, class name, card dash body. Okay. And then have like a H div, class name, card title. And then in between the bracket, in between the tags for the H5, we'll pass name. So just name, since we deconstructed it, it won't be pet.name, it'll just be name. And then we'll have a p tag for, and then we'll have a class name on this p tag of card text, card dash text. In between the p tags, we'll have the brackets and we'll pass the breed. And we also need an image. So we'll do an image tag, src equals curly brackets, image URL. Okay, alt could be the breed, I guess. Pass breed, so alt curly brackets breed, and then slash, we'll close that. Okay, let's see. Everything looks okay, so let's run this and see npm run dev. Okay, cool. A little bit. We could fix that with we could probably add style to this card div. So it would be style, and then it needs curly brackets is the syntax for that. So we could just do with and then with colon and then in quotes we could do I think 18 REM. And I think we need let's see if we get an error. Oh, the pictures are still oh, I think if we add a class to the images, they'll fit the card. So we'll go to our image tag class name and we can do img fluid so it just takes up the card. Yeah, there we go. We can make them like in a row if we want. Let me see. Full dash 3 or no, cool dash 4. Let's see if that something is going on with my code. We have a row. Oh, let's see. Let's take this call and put it here and wrap it around. All right, let's see what that. Okay, that fixed it. Okay. So now that they are kind of around here, we could also do, we can change these to divs, last name of container. And that'll probably give it a little margin. Yeah. So that's it for this, I think. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully I didn't mess up too bad. But that is it for this day 1, and I'm gonna do one for day 2 as well.